And loser also very well might be.
Yeah. No, I'm more just of the fact of, one of these archetypes is already in, is going to make it. Black-Red Vengevine. Paul's going on a mulligan to 5 at the moment, which is, a concern for every deck in Modern, but I actually suspect that this deck can function on a mull to 5 better than most.
Yeah. Paul Conlin, and now I see the face. So we have covered him before playing Bridge from Below, Insolent Neonate. So he has a lot of reps with this and similar decks, and Citrus Supplier is a very big upgrade. Just dumps cards into your graveyard. It's like more looks at Vengevine and Bridge from Below.
It's the Black Hedron Crab. Is that even that far off?
No, that's pretty close.
Okay.
The fact that it can't just sacrifice itself means that you're not always getting as many cards, but the fact that you want to block with it can be worth a good amount.
Yeah. It does it on turn 1 also. Which,
yes.
I guess only if the format's very fast matters.
One thing that Citrus Supplier really opened up is that you see 4 copies of Gravecrawler in Paul's list here. When the previous list existed, it wasn't always a guarantee that you have a zombie. Gravecrawler plus Vengevine synergizes very well. You're putting more cards in your graveyard. Citrus Supplier is a zombie. So you have some draws where you immediately just mill over Gravecrawler and Vengevine, and you can bring that back right away. Turn 1, some creature. Turn 2, Citrus Supplier. Get that stuff in your graveyard. Even Faithful Looting on turn 1, and you just have 10 power on the second turn of the game. Of course, I don't think we're going to see that this game. Paul's looking at very few cards.
And scries to the top. So we'll see if his deck can function on a low amount of material here. Paul just says go for the first turn.
Perhaps it's a hand that's really online with the Faithful Looting if he's able to cast it. Though at 4 cards, it looks like...
Yeah, he kept on 4.
Going to 3 is not generally going to be better.
And here is Gravecrawler and a pass. And Jody will start cycling.
And Paul really needs to get ahead of this sort of effect from Jody. He's going to build up that graveyard, inevitably cascade into a living end, and Conlin's deck is not going to be good at blocking from there. Has a number of creatures that can't block, Gravecrawler being chief among them, and then Hangerback Walkers and Walking Ballistas that don't come back really from living end.
And Jody's still cycling. We had Desert Ceradon and Archfiend of Ifnir. At this point, Jody may not cast a living end. He could just eventually play a nice draft deck, curve into some things.
Probably not.
He could.
Yes, theoretically.
Yeah. Or he could just cast he could make a living end here too. That'd be pretty good.
Jody is a player that plays a good amount of Modern. He is someone that streams Magic. I have to imagine that he's seen this deck in some capacity. He has been making splashes.
Oh, he's going to Beast Within Paul's land. Just what a gentleman play. And then, next turn he's going to make him get rid of that token. Paul did draw another land. Goes back up to 1.
Yeah, cracked fetch land right away, though the land was the draw for turn. Be a little bit surprised to see a spell from here.
And here is Stitcher Supplier. Card from Magic Core Set 19. When it enters battlefield or dies, mills yourself for 3. So he'll get a Bridge from Below and a Gravecrawler into the yard. Now, what's going to be interesting here is with specifically how Living End works. So Bridge from Below triggers when a creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield. You see right now he's going to go ahead and make 3 zombies, I think, here, with 2 zombies, with a Hangerback on 0 and a Walker on 0. Living End actually will trigger Bridge from Below, I believe. Because the creatures are sacrificed.
Yes. And Jody won't have anything going to the graveyard, so won't be leaving. And then also, Paul will be bringing back these 0-mana creatures, so they're generally not worth anything. Yeah, they'll get some zombies. Now, Jody was pretty capable of cleaning that up with Archfiend of Ifnir, depending on how many cyclers he has left over.
Yeah, but this is going to get... Bridge from Below is an interesting card against Living End. You don't see Bridge from Below getting played much in Modern.
Right. There was a period when Grave Troll was legal, where it made a little bit of a resurgence.
Right.
Saw some Greater Gargadons builds of Dredge.
And we'll see a pass from Paul. Jody was down to 15. Here's Faithless Looting on Paul's side. For one land, he's making a game out of this. In response to the looting, Jody, he's got another Beast Within, also Violent Outburst. Yeah, I think he's going to Violent Outburst before that looting resolves. So, we're going to get a Living End.
Yep. The only thing that we can get. We'll see if Jody's holding priority to cycle some other creature on top of this, or maybe use a Fairy Macabre.
Fairy Macabre will be an interesting one. Looks like no, he will get Desert Ceradon and Archfiend Vifnir into play. So some number, we saw 2 creatures sacrifice Stitcher's Supplier. We'll see how many zombies we get here. 2 creatures were sacrificed.
Yeah, we'll
so
see
that's
the
2 zombies.
Stitcher Supplier trigger as well will mill Paul for 3, as that's gone to the graveyard.
And then those 2 guys die again. So Paul gets two triggers off the Hangerback and the Ballista dying. Now, I believe Paul gets 2 more zombies. Yep, off the creatures dying on Living End.
Yep, so there's kind of a lot happening there.
Right.
A lot of things, some weird timing things. At the end of it, though, you see Paul with 4 zombies and that blood gas that was in the graveyard.
Right, and this is all still on Paul's turn.
Yeah, that was in response to that Faithless Looting.
Right, so now he discards 2 cards, including a Rotting Rats. And now I think it's on to Jody. If he can cycle 2 cards, he'll still just sweep away the board thanks to Archfiend of Vifnir. So cycles the Desert Ceradon. 1 zombie play. The upper stack of zombies with 1 -1 counter on it. The last one does not have one.
And it's not a tall order for Jody to discard or cycle some other card on this turn.
Right. Yeah, also triggering off discarding.
Looks like, I want to say he picked up a Fairy Macabre.
Okay, well, that'll work. Archfiend of Ifnir really giving the deck an extra angle here.
Yeah, these zombies might have made a game of things if that was not what Jody was bringing back. 10 power is nothing to sneeze at. But reducing it to 0 certainly makes it so.
So Paul down to 8 on the attack. And post-combat, Jody's just going to make a Simian Spirit Guide. Interesting game going on here. It does look like Jody's going to win on the next attack.
Right.
That Fairy Macabre, he can discard it, sweep most of the rest of the zombies away.
Here's a landfall trigger. Paul's looking at bringing Bloodcast back, but now Jody is at the ready with that Fairy Macabre.
Right, hits 2. -1 counter on the creatures. Yeah, Paul will pick them up.
Yeah, I imagine it was Bloodghast Bridge from below. Maybe some other card besides Bloodghast. Doesn't really matter. Sweeping away those zombies is going to seal it.
So game 1 goes over toward Jody Keith on Living End. So this is going to be an interesting one to break down out of the sideboard, with both players using the graveyard so heavily. On Jody's side, his sideboard's pretty limited because he can't play things that could be cascaded into.
Right.
4 Dead Gons as removal. 4 Fulminator Mages, 3 Ingot Chewers, 3 Leyline of the Void, and a Slaughter Games.
The ley lines are great. We're about to see another ley line of the Void Mirror. Both players have them. Both players want them.
Right. Now, the last time we saw Dead Gone be pretty good against Hollow One. Do you think that's still true in this matchup?
No. Paul's deck is just making a lot of creatures for 0 or 1 mana, producing some free stuff out of the graveyard, making zombie tokens with his setup. The card that's borderline interesting is actually Ingot Chewer, because it's a creature that can just put itself from the battlefield into the graveyard. If you're not very familiar with Bridge from Below, your opponent's creatures going to their graveyard remove it from your graveyard. So your stuff dying gives you a zombie, their stuff dying exiles your bridge. So a creature that can just put itself into the graveyard, evoking Ingot Chewer, actually has some play in the matchup. I don't know if Jody will go for that. For sure he'll go for the Leyline of the Voids.
All right, now on Paul's side, he has 4 Leylines of his own. 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Collective Brutality, 2 Crypt Breaker, 2 Ingot Chewer, and 2 Lightning Axe. In a lot of ways, he's playing the same style deck. More interesting on Paul's side is he actually, I want to say, relies on the graveyard harder than Jody. His cards don't play real Magic very well at all.
Yeah, his stuff has really come out of the graveyard. He doesn't have the ability to produce green mana, so it's not like he's casting a Vengevine.
Right.
He's trying to put Bridge from Below in the graveyard, put Vengevine in the graveyard, Gravecrawler, make all this stuff come back, convert with the Goblin Bushwhacker. It's not like he's good at casting Hangerback Walker and Walking Ballista.
So my first question is, if Jody just has a Leyline in the opener, what does Paul have counterplay? How well can his deck beat that?
He's just going to be casting kind of these crummy creatures, really hoping for his own Leyline.
Okay.
If he has his own Leyline, then just casting a creature with 1 or 2 power
might do something.
Right. The Gravecrawler can put pressure on Jody, whereas Jody's waiting until he has 5 mana to start casting creatures.
Right. Do you want, and then I guess so he'll bring in his own Leylines. Outside of that, we see Thoughtseize, Brutality.
That stuff's all fine.
Yeah, maybe Lightning Axe. It can kill an Archie and a Vifner.
I think that we're playing for a game that we've already lost.
Okay.
He also is sideboarding a little bit heavy. I think the discard spells are better than Lightning Axe, so if we're bringing that in, that means we're already looking at least 7, probably 9 cards with the Brutalities. The Lightning Axe
that'd be too much.
Right. This deck is already in a situation where you just need a lot of the things that you're bringing to the table. Your cards played really well together, and they play really poorly on their own.
Yeah, a lot of these things are not even functional unless there's some kind of synergy going on.
Right, and for that reason, it's hard to bring anything past the 4 ley lines even.
Yeah, I mean, right, you said you have 4 uncastable Vengevines, for example.
Right. Yeah, with sideboarding, the deck always has the option to trim the Goblin Bushwhackers. Those are generally only good if your deck's really doing its thing. You can trim on some of the other effects. You know, Rotting Rats is not the most exceptional card. Jody's deck not really wants to discard a card to Rotting Rats. It's more that the individual impact of the Rotting Rats is not too much. These are also decks who are just based on how they play out are likely to have Leyline of the Void in the sideboard. So that's probably on some level on both players' radars.
It's interesting. You're right. They are both on both players' radars, but neither of their decks have very many tools to answer it.
Right. For Jody, it's don't board out these Beast Withins.
Right.
For Paul, it's, I don't know, attack for 1 with Goblin Bushwhacker.
Yeah.
Activate Hangerback Walker.
All right. Check here. Once I said to keep, are there any ley lines? We won't know yet. Jody's mulliganing.
Right. Yeah, and you don't get to know as you mulligan down. You wait until both players keep. That's kind of a fun element of the Leyline game. And by fun, I mean stressful for players actually in the match. The Living End deck is actually very capable of keeping a wide range of hands.
Yeah.
Mana sources and cycling creatures.
One of the things I find interesting with it is that it can be tough because of so many cycling creatures to make mulliganing decisions with. You know, something like 2 lands and 4 cycling creatures. Is that a keep? Ooh, yeah. Is it good? I don't know.
Unclear, yeah. I can draw 4 cards, and maybe I have a sweeper that brings them all back on the 3rd turn of the game. Maybe.
So we have one-sided leyline situation. Paul Conlin had a leyline in his opener. Jody did not.
Mm-hmm. He's on 7 to Jody's 6, and one of those 7 was the leyline.
So we'll see if it's worth that card. Turn 1 Gravecrawler from Conlin.
It's almost always going to be worth the card. Especially because Jody's answer is 3 mana and having Beast Within.
Yeah, I do think that Jody's deck's more capable of winning through leyline than Paul's.
When it comes,
sweepers still do things.
Agnostic of any pressure, I definitely agree. And yeah, the sweepers are worth something. Though Paul, because of these Citrus Suppliers, Faithless Lootings, there's a chance he's just bringing some stuff back.
That was true. We did see that last game, a Living End from Jody's side. And Jody won because Living End made him 11 power of creatures. But the Living End did very little to get rid of Paul's board.
Right. In particular, once Stitcher Suppliers get involved, Paul's going to have some stuff in his graveyard. He can miss. You know, it's only so many cards, but the odds are definitely in his favor to have something there. Now, it might just be some 2-power creatures and 1-power creatures, but he gets in these early hits, and that can add up.
Jody's second land here. He'll pass. He does have cards that could be cycled. He's not cycled any of them yet. Content with his holding.
If he's been hanging out with the Beast Within, then it's likely very worth it to hold out for those cycling creatures.
Yeah.
Especially under the pressure he's under right now. He's not taking too much damage. It looks like Paul's Keep is largely predicated on that Leyline of the Void. Okay. And you can kind of suss that out because the broken elements of the deck, they all cost 1, maybe 2 mana. If Paul had something really good, he probably would have cast it on turn 1 or 2.
Right, we're just having some medium beats right now. Now, this is going to be kind of scary. Here's Goblin Bushwhacker from Paul. It's a good amount of damage. These 3 will swing in for 7, dropping Jody to 10. Looks like now he will cycle away a Monstrous Carabid. And a Horror of the Broken Lands, drawing into at least 1, maybe 2 more lands. In his hand, full up on lands here. You see 4 of them just shuffled to the front.
Yikes.
Fairy Macabre cast as a blocker for Jody.
I see.
Okay.
That is a sign of weakness if I ever saw one.
Yeah, that is not great.
Yeah, he just has to start blocking these creatures. Yeah, from 10 with an additional point just on the table with that Walking Ballista. Jody appears to not have ever had access to that Beast Within that might have been there. And Gravecrawler comes across, and Jody doesn't even block.
Yeah, Viscera Seer from Paul. Jody's down to 8.
That Viscera Seer is actually kind of a big deal.
So why's that?
So now, if Jody has Living End, it means that Paul can respond, sacrifice all the creatures away, scry, and then just get them all back. Right. Jody's at 8.
So actually now Jody just doesn't have a sweeper.
Right.
Yeah. Gravecrawler continues to swing in. There's not another zombie to bring it back just yet. Jody will go ahead and trade Simian Spirit Guide with it. Now, I expect one to show up at some point here.
Yeah, for zombies, there's 4 Gravecrawlers, so there's 3 more of those, the 4 Stitcher Suppliers, and those 2 Rotting Rats. Also, Bridge from Below, if one ever shows up, does produce zombie tokens.
So Jody traded away Paul, no follow-up play, not doing anything with his mana, actually just passed through a turn cycle. His hand's not providing him much.
Would have at least have liked to have a 4th land to start activating the Ballista.
Right. If you get that Ballista up to a 3/3, it's very relevant here. He'll swing with Viscera Seer and Bushwhacker. And Jody happy to trade Fairy Macabre. He'll take 1 off the Bushwhacker, and I think we're going to see Walking Ballista to attempt to finish off that Fairy Macabre.
Yeah. The block is definitely correct there for Jody. Get rid of the Seer as it can sacrifice creatures in response to the Living End, though now Paul at least has the Gravecrawler and the Seer in the graveyard, and he's starting to crank up the Walking Ballista, and he'll start having just good attacks again.
And Jody loses the Fairy Macabre. Draw for Jody, Violent Outburst. And honestly, he's going to have to use it pretty soon. If Paul next turn just pumps Ballista and swings 3, we're very close to going to game 3.
Right. Jody's in range to start casting some of his cycling creatures, but looks like he just doesn't have the option. Just full up on lands.
Swing for 2. Any pumps from Paul? Looks like the answer is no.
I think another Walking Ballista is in the hand.
And he's just going to say go, holding up the mana. He's really playing this one in slow, and I don't mind.
Yeah, Violent Outburst in response to activating a Ballista would reduce the damage he dealt that turn.
Monstrous Carabid picked up for Jody Keith.
Yeah, the Leyline is really just covering all of Jody's options, so Paul's not in a rush.
If Jody plays that Carabid and Paul has another Ballista, that's actually lethal. Jody will cycle the Carabid, and he has all lands? Mostly lands. Says go. Another counter on that Ballista. See if there's maybe a Beast Within in response, otherwise he'll get the counter. And it goes up to a 2/2.
Yeah, and now if these creatures connect, this is lethal. 3+2.
Swing. Violent Outburst is going to force it on Jody's side. That'll cascade into Living End. Jody will likely go to 3 here.
Yeah, Paul's line is just to have the Ballista go upstairs. And then Paul gets to bring back that Viscera Seer and that Gravecrawler.
Shoots Jody down to 3s. Mentions there. And so Bushwhacker is down. Creatures come back. Ballista dies again. Jody's still at that 3, and we'll see if there's any sort of post-combat play from Paul Conlin. Land 5 and a pass.
He's been hanging on to a second Ballista, I believe. If he gets a 6th land, he can just cast it and it's lethal.
Yeah, at this point, I actually like waiting.
Yeah,
Jody will pick up cards.
Lethal attackers anyway. Yeah, no real pressure there.
So we will be going to a game 3 here. A one-sided ley line fight there goes Paul's way. Jody's hand actually... Well, I guess he had 2 cycling creatures. If there wasn't the ley line in play, he might have been able to get that. Paul's deck did not impress too much outside of the ley line.
Yeah, but ultimately, against both of these decks, if you just apply any pressure, ley line is so good.
Right.
This is really a testament to that. And Paul does have ley line advantage, 4 copies to Jody's 3.
Yeah, so we'll have them slightly more often.
Yeah, this is really reminiscent of old Dredge Mirrors. Just casting some low-power creature. Decks do something busted when there's no ley line, and when there is a ley line, sometimes even the player with the ley line doesn't do very much.
So, 3rd game will decide it. So over StarCityGames.com, Commander 2018 edition is now available for pre-order on our website. These are the decks, and the sets of 4 as a whole unit are all available. You can find them. They will not ship, though, until August 10th. That's when the set's legal for sale. But place your order now. Reserve your spot, StarCityGames.com/C18.
Yeah, these Commander decks historically have been pretty fun to play right out of the box. You get a lot of cool new designs with Commander.
They have a Panther Planeswalker. It's just a giant. It's another
You
cat.
mentioned Lord Windgrace earlier this weekend, and I thought you wanted to talk about the text box, and you just pulled up the art for the card. Like, you just pulled up the deck in a way that I couldn't even read the abilities. You had no interest in talking about the card whatsoever.
Do you think he and a Johnny can speak cat to each other?
Probably.
I mean, they're different. You know, this is like more of a panther, and a Johnny's more of a lion. I don't know.
I'll have to check the new Magic the Gathering Dungeons and Dragons supplemental product.
That's my question.
I believe that Johnny speaks Common and Cat.
Is Cat's a language? Cat doesn't have regional dialects because they definitely wouldn't have the same accent.
I mean, Johnny speaks Common and Cat Common.
Okay.
That joke is for no one, by the way. If you got that, thank you. I've played a couple Dungeons and Dragons sessions recently.
It's Cat Common's not a language. Common is.
Correct. You're so close. You're so close. And by that I mean they weren't one-offs. I did the thing where you start a campaign. We're never going to finish it.
That's not the point.
One of my friends left a 12-pack of Coca-Cola in my fridge, and that became my burden. Yeah, I just can't drink soda anymore. But I've been drinking it because it's there. It's really just a bad scene. I'm envious of people that have functional Dungeons and Dragons groups. Those are rare.
I mean, like hanging out and drinking soda. If my dysfunctional Dungeons and Dragons group consists of people coming and putting things in my fridge that then become mine,
it could be worse.
That's not terrible. Game 3 underway. Again, one-sided ley line fight in Paul's advantage.
That's where you want to be.
It'd be better than if my dysfunctional Dungeons and Dragons group was I put food in other people's fridges and then didn't play Dungeons and Dragons. That sounds worse.
Right.
So here's my game night. You bring me food, and then we don't play games.
Right, and now you can leave.
All right. Same time next week.
And we'll see if Paul can actually do something busted on top of Leyline. You got to remember, that is still an option for the deck. Game 2 was Leyline and some 1-mana 1/1s and 2/2s.
Right. Now we're okay, I like this. We discarded Vengevine and Bridge from Below. All right.
That's a big deal.
That is way less fair than what he was doing previously.
Yes. Now, this turn could have gone 0 mana, like Walking Ballista, Hangerback Walker, bring back Vengevine, make some zombies. So it could be scarier, but it's still pretty scary.
Now, you know that we never get to see cool things. So Jody's just going to Fairy Macabre both those cards, I'm sure.
That's true. Paul played around it. He's
I just
sandbagging
carded 2 great things, and now you can exile them.
Yeah, want to at least cast this Hangerback Walker for 1 so I get a point in.
Back over to Paul we go. Here's a fetch land. I want to see like a Stitcher, 2 Stitcher suppliers.
Oh, yeah. The first one hitting a Vengevine.
Oh, yeah. Let's just hit more Vengevines. Then we need to therapy Jody off them. You know, naming Demonic Dread, naming Violent Outburst.
Oh, Cabal Therapy would be messed up in Modern.
Yeah. Here's Insolent Neonate from Paul.
Ooh, can we discard
Second creature.
discard a Vengevine?
Well, Jody may want to respond, right?
I would consider it.
Cycles of Carabid. Finds a Horror of the Broken Lands.
Yeah, you want to get that bridge out of the graveyard
That's a macabre.
before the Insolent Neonate's able to be activated.
That's good. Oh, discarding a Vengevine.
Yes.
Making a zombie. Now does Jody is he going to Fairy Macabre both these Vengevines? I'm going to be so sad.
I mean, that's probably the play. Paul will only get a zombie for that.
I'm going to be so sad. He draws off Insolent Neonate. It's not even that bad.
You can
He's got
wait.
another Bridge from Below in his hand. It's
You can wait for Paul to have another creature, and there it is.
Stitcher
This is
Supplier?
where you want a macabre.
Oh, there's both of them.
Boo!
Wow, that's the rudest.
Paul's still doing pretty good, though.
Yeah. Mills over, a Hangerback Walk. Oh, another Bridge. There's 2 Bridge from Belows in the yard. That's not bad.
Yes.
We can work with that.
We haven't seen any of these Hangerback Walkers or Walking Ballistas from Conlin yet. It's not clear how capable he will be of triggering his own Bridge from Below.
Right.
He is at least in a position where Living End means he'll get a bunch of zombies and Jody will get nothing because of Leyline of the Void. Living End actually currently upgrades Paul's position. He goes from
Yeah, if you just cast Living End, it's like, thank you.
right. He goes from a supplier and a zombie to 2 zombies and a supplier activation. So plus 1 power and question mark additional value. Also, that Neonate comes back. That's good for some more zombies.
On Jody's side, 2 Simian Spirit Guides and land 3 in the hand. I mean, he's got Dead Gone. Has boarded them in. Looks like another Horror of the Broken Lands. A Violent Outburst. And that's the full grip. So he'll cycle Horror. And passes the turn. Back to Paul we go. Jody's still at a very healthy 19. Paul's graveyard semi-managed. Still has those 2 Bridge from Belows left.
Yeah, that Fairy Macabre for those Vengevines, that was a big deal. His life total would be closer to 0 were that not available.
Okay, here's Viscera Seer. And Gravecrawler. Ooh, we could have fun with this one.
Ooh, yeah, so now...
This is
so
nice.
With Bridge Below in the graveyard, he has 2 copies. When he starts untapping with mana, he can sacrifice the Gravecrawler to the Seer, making 2 zombies for his 2 Bridgers.
And then play it.
And he has zombies left over, exactly. Just cast it, make a bunch of zombies.
I like this. I like what's happening here.
Yes. And Jody can't knock him off of that because Paul just uses the Seer to put the creatures in the graveyard.
Without Leyline of the Void in play, this is a difficult matchup for Jody.
And with Leyline of the Void in play, this is an easy matchup for Paul.
Yeah. Dead Gone from Jody Keith.
I would expect a response.
So in response, Paul's going to sacrifice the Gravecrawler to scry 1, get 2 zombies. Do you think he goes all the way to sacrifices the supplier as well?
It's an upgrade on the supplier. It makes sense to me.
Scries to the bottom. No, he'll just sacrifice it to itself. It looks like he's keeping the supplier around, but makes 2 more zombies, scries 1.
Doesn't make a huge difference either way.
No. Jody pitches 2 Seaman Spear Guides for Archfiend of Ifnir. All right, that makes sense. Now Jody can sweep the board away. It's his the alternative sweeper in the deck.
Yeah, Archfiend is a big deal.
Faithless Looting from Paul.
Is that another Bridge from Below?
Ooh. Okay. I mean, at some point, if Jody has enough cards that cycle, it doesn't matter. But he only has 2 cards in hand, and one of them is Violent Outburst.
He is a little bit mana-light to be cycling a bunch, too. Keep in mind that the first activation on the Archfiend, because Paul kept the supplier around,
All right.
that's going to split into some zombies, and it's also going to mill over some cards.
Discarding Hangerback Walker and Leyline of the Void, does Paul. Swings in, this is guaranteed 9 damage. It's a swing for 11.
You know, because of that supplier making zombies line I was just talking about, it kind of makes sense to block the Sigil supplier.
I agree. Taking 10 versus taking 9 doesn't feel like a difference on Jody's side. It's can you control the board or not?
Right.
And that's exactly what's going to happen. Stitcher Supplier blocks. Jody drops to 6. Paul's going to mill 3, get 2 zombies. Maybe more. Mills over, nothing of consequence. But gets 2 more zombies.
Another Stitcher supplier, which is something if a Living End were to happen. Currently, Jody is on a path where his game plan is making this Archfiend kill these zombies.
Well, Ryan, so there's now 7 zombies in play. So if Jody only has 1 card that cycles, he's actually still dead on the attack next turn.
Yeah. Yeah, 7, block 1, still comes across for 6.
Yeah, and it's going to be Thoughtseize from Conlin. Okay, he'll take one of the Violent Outbursts.
Notably, this triggers Archfiend of Ifnir, and Jody didn't have a cycler.
Let's see if Jody missed it too.
Oh wow! Yeah, whenever you cycle or discard a card, right?
Yeah. Good.
That's a big miss for that's a big miss for Jody Keith. Let's see if he recovers. He drew a cycler. Yeah, when you use cycle or discard another card for whatever reason,
and that's a game-changing play. Right now, they're all 1/1 zombies. They could be 0/0. They'd just be dead.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, like, that's not how you...
It's weird.
It's weird. I missed it before you said it because I generally don't think my opponent Thoughtseize me time to go, wrath his board.
That was the setup. All right,
yeah.
we're good.
Gravecrawler cast from the graveyard for Paul Conlin. Wow. Okay. I mean, Jody's forced to Violent Outburst into Living End now.
Right. And from there,
he's got
to figure out a whole bunch of creatures coming back for Paul. And yeah, Jody's done.
He extends the hand. Yeah, he can't do it. So Paul Conlin, he's going to win this one 2-1. Gets both the sideboard games off Leyline of the Void, and at 7-1, his Black-Red Vengevine deck is into day 2.
Yeah, the texture of the matchup, it is a little bit